with us today, we have Beth White, the CEO and founder of MeBeBot. Beth, why don't you give us a quick intro?
All right. Thanks, Brian, for having me. And it's great to get a chance to share a bit of insights into MeBeBot and a little bit of founder story. I founded MeBeBot about 5.5 years ago, really as many people out there with an idea and a business problem that needed to be solved and kind of put two and two together. And it had some legs and took off, and here we are today. But that's a very simplified view of what goes into it all. I spent many years working in a lot of emerging tech companies here in Austin, Texas, and my early career began in HR. And so I was often tapped as one of those people that came into organizations that may have gotten their first kind of big chunk of funding money, and they needed to ramp up and grow their teams and really think through, how they were going to have company culture, what their hiring strategies were going to be, and their talent development. And frankly, I've worked in all different industries, from retail technology, e-commerce, to also in the fintech space, as well as in digital media. And in those experiences, I got to see a lot of different founders go about starting companies in different ways, either
Yeah.
from a tech focus or from a business focus, and had a lot of learnings from there. And I
I mean,
shifted my career about 10 or plus years ago out of HR, frankly, which is what led me to MeBeBot, because I was tired of the administrative work that was related to the HR profession and really didn't see that changing. And frankly, I wanted to be more impactful to businesses. And I took a detour into enterprise software sales, which people say, hey, that's a pretty big change from being in
yeah.
HR. But what most people don't know is there's a lot of the same skills in sales and HR. You're connecting people. I was a recruiter for many years, which is, hey, I worked at 100% commission recruiting position, which if that's not sales, I don't know what is. And
Oh
getting
yeah,
out there in
that's
front of
tough. That's the
customers,
toughest kind of
it is
sales.
tough. It is tough.
I did,
And it's you
funny
put
story.
everything out there. Yeah.
I did a recruiting. I like you. I've done lots of different jobs, and I did a recruiting job for literally 2 or 3 weeks in my early 20s, right after college. It was a recession. It was Seattle. It was like 2003, four,
Oh,
somewhere in
gosh.
that. And I remember and I'm pretty good at sales. I sold cars during college to pay for school. Like I sold car stereos during college, and that recruiting sales, like recruiting, like independent broker recruiter, that's one of the toughest jobs. I didn't like it.
It
I was
is,
just like,
because
after a couple weeks, I was like, I'm done with this.
you have to have pretty thick skin and really know what you're looking for, and you have to be fast. You have to be fast and scrappy. And really, that's why they call it, used to call it headhunting. I know that's not politically correct anymore, but that's
Yeah.
like you're out there seeking talent, and you're putting and matching talent to openings and job and companies. And really, when you think about what do good salespeople do, is they're
Yeah.
listening to what people have as needs and matching a solution to fit that need. And it was exciting being in the sales arena, and having that quota. And I wasn't,
Yeah.
frankly, afraid of it. In fact, I had a base salary plus commission, which was much better than I had in the
Yeah.
recruiting side of things, right? And getting out there and learning how impactful solutions can really be to businesses. And I took a lot of I guess, insights into what became MeBeBot from, frankly, the retail tech community and the way they handle the whole consumer experience. And it's so important to a retailer and a brand to really put themselves out there to have that great brand experience. And with the world of e-com and mobile and in-store experiences, they were tying it all together in what we call omni-channel retailing. And I was on the forefront of that, which was very exciting, and got to see how a lot of business problems were solved using mobile solutions with in-store experiences, which really led us to, developing and getting MeBeBot off the ground, which is how do we flip that model and bring that great consumer experience inside the workplace to what we do at MeBeBot for the employee experience.
That's amazing. So walk us through the genesis of MeBeBot. Like, so you're in enterprise sales, for, it sounds like 5 years after your HR career. And then, yeah, what was it? What was the genesis there?
Yeah, essentially, when you're at a company that grows and does well, at times there's exits. So there was an exit, and frankly, it was a great exit, but I wasn't really enticed to go to the big company that then purchased the emerging startup that I was at. So it was, what do you do next? And in thinking about different business problems inside organizations, what really caught my eye is when I started seeing chatbots pop up on consumer-facing websites. And I mean, this is back in 2017 timeframe, right?
That's the last
And
time I
I
built a
was,
chatbot.
yeah,
Coincidentally, I was at a
exactly.
company called Conversica, and it was very
See,
rudimentary technology back then compared to
it
now. Yeah.
was. It was, and everybody was cobbling together a lot of different types of tools. It was much more focused on different types of channels of engagement, and really, what kind of led me to MeBeBot was, how do you take that chatbot experience but bring it inside the organization? And it wasn't until really Slack started to
Mm,
supercharge and take off and had the app marketplace where it's like, okay, that's a great place in the flow of work that you can put a chatbot.
yeah.
And frankly, our second iteration of MeBeBot, or really first, was in Skype for Business before that was even Teams
Oh,
from
wow.
Microsoft, and started on the early days. And it was really with, the evolution was like, how do we create this kind of experience where you can support, your customer, which inside companies, it's the employee, get the support they need quicker and faster. And I floated this idea around to people in my community here in Austin, a lot of leaders I knew in the HR
Yeah.
space, and got a resounding, oh my God, that's great. What an awesome idea. And one stand-up leader, Debbie Smith, said, let's try this at E2 Open. And so E2 Open became our first customer, really as essentially a prototype MVP. And starting from day one with a customer that was bought into it and wanted to make it work, frankly, was a huge gift. It really was. It
Yeah.
was really what took MeBeBot to, like, this could be something. But there's iterations thereafter, but I'll pause for a moment after that.
That's
So, but
amazing.
we had to prototype it after that, because we really did it as like, okay, let's give this a try as a prototype. But then, okay, you learn what works and what doesn't work, and you have to figure out, okay, this can't be a just one-to-one scenario, because frankly, I did not want to be in the consulting services space. I was committed to saying, if we do this, it has to be a SaaS-based solution that's one-to-many. And how do you do that? How do you take what we did with
Right.
E2 Open and have it for one-to-many? And that's much more complicated.
Yeah, we could get into that journey, but I love the point where you have an idea and you show it to a potential customer or a friend or a colleague, and they're so excited that not only do they want to buy it, but they're willing to be the guinea pig design partner for that product and solution. That's when you know you have something special, right? And it's happened a few times in my career as a founder, as a product manager, where you're talking through the concept and the light bulb is there with the customer, and that's when you know you have something. Like, I want to buy this right now. Can I buy this?
Yeah, yeah.
I
And
love that
it
story.
was it was great. And a lot of, early stage founders that I know through, again, just different communities that I'm part of, they'll ask me of like, hey, I've got this. And I said, well, have you gone out there to get somebody's hands on it, let them try it, whatever you need to do to get real people using your product and what business case you think it's best for. I mean, that's key. That's really critical. Again, being at a lot of different startups over the years, that if we build it, they will come
Yeah.
methodology doesn't work, and I've seen it really
Oh,
backfire
I've
with
built
some
lots of stuff that
amazing
nobody's
smart
using. Yeah.
people. Yeah, yeah, with some amazing smart people with good
Yeah.
ideas and awesome tech, but they didn't have the business use case, or they didn't know their domain too, which is something that I know we put a lot of pride into, is that we really understand the business problems we're solving.
Yeah, I mean, you've lived it, right? And so
Yeah.
if you've lived it, you have the empathy. I love that. Yeah, we call that founder market fit. But yeah, to walk us through. So now you have this design partner, and you're starting to build this thing. Walk us through some of the challenges and that journey and the story to get to where you're at now.
Yeah, again, it was early stage, apps in marketplaces like Slack, and again, pre Teams. And so designing to different interfaces is always challenging. But what was really a unique problem is companies that are going global very quickly, either through acquisitions or just other growth strategies. How do you support employees in different geographic areas? Because especially in the domain we serve well, which is, we answer IT questions, HR, payroll, benefits, etc. But in the world of the HR content, it's complex.
Mm,
If you're in the UK, if you're in India, you're on a different payroll system
mm,
likely. You have different benefits and different labor laws. And so how
yeah.
do you serve a solution to people in different countries that really, is specific to their business, to their needs of people in those countries? And that was pretty tough, to get that kind of design strategy going there.
Yeah.
And then again, with the first iterations of a lot of chatbots, there wasn't initially the concept of one chat bot for many topics. There was the concept of you had siloed bots like an IT bot, an HR
Mm,
bot, and we had to kind of leverage some technology to do what we're calling like dispatching services back in the early days. So we were precursor to generative AI, and we were leveraging natural language processing and machine learning. So we had to really design the solution in a different way for the plethora of content we wanted to cover horizontally across the business
yeah.
plus geographic.
Yeah, you're describing kind of the verticalization of AI. It used to be, and it still is to a certain extent, you had to go really, really narrow to get it to work. Um,
That's
but how
right.
how how has your business changed now that large language models over the last year or two have really burst on the scene? How did that accelerate or change how you guys do things?
Yeah, it's definitely changed. Again, when OpenAI came out about a year ago, exact November, 30th
Yeah,
around
yeah,
of last year, OpenAI ChatGPT is out there, and it's essentially I call it making AI what people think of AI as accessible. It was finally people are like, oh, I get how this could work, and they get to play with it in this easy little user interface sandbox and say ChatGPT. So that was great. It showed the power of content through AI. I think we've all been using aspects of AI for years, and maybe people didn't put a thought to it as much as like Google Maps or, when you're leveraging your Siri and Alexa devices. Those are all using, different types of AI. But for some reason, the consumerization of AI happened with the Gen AI explosion, right? And so that's great because it helped us remove some of the barriers of like, what is this that you're doing, and doing a lot of education around the technology. But now we're at a point where there's this thought that Gen AI is everything AI. And it's like, well, that's one type of AI. And there's different ways you can solve problems based on what you're trying to do. But we responded and we had early access to Azure's instance of OpenAI as we're on top of the Microsoft Azure stack. So we were in sandbox mode with it for quite a while, and we came out with a thesis of how we're going to change, how we're going to slightly shift our business to take advantage of the great aspects of what Gen AI brings to the market, which is, hey company, if you have content, why don't we take and ingest that company content into MeBeBot, allow the Gen AI to help deduce down a several page company information piece or benefit into a succinct chat response. But what we did different than many companies are thinking about today is we said there still needs to be what we call human in the loop or verified AI.
right.
We call it AI with guardrails right now because
Mhm.
we're not convinced that the types of customers we're working with in the buyer market is really ready for Gen AI to be like layered on top of any kind of content and delivering information like we do around employee policies and how things are going to work for your leave of absence, etc. I mean, those are written down for the letter of the law, and companies are very sensitive to how that information is being delivered. So again, we've responded by saying, well, let's take the good aspects of the generative AI that can synthesize an answer, but then let's have the human in the loop to verify the answer that employees are going to get locked down and received in the future to help meet people where they are right now
Right.
today. And we can satisfy a lot of the compliance and the security and the infosec needs that companies have. We have SOC 2 certification, and we think very much about the enterprise business buyer and meeting their needs of where they are today.
Right. I had a couple questions that came from that last exchange. One is you built on Azure,
Mm-hmm.
near and dear to my heart because I came from Microsoft. But why did you choose Azure over AWS?
Yeah, that was a tough one. I mean,
Yeah.
there's turning points in the company evolution. And frankly, we were looking at IBM Watson, we were looking at AWS, we were looking at some Google tech, and they had this great dialog flow builder at the time, and Microsoft. And, really kind of came down to, well, who's going to be our customer buyer?
Mm,
What kinds of things are important to them and what tools are they already using and solutions in their environment? And frankly, for years, Microsoft has owned the market for the companies that are using Office 365.
right.
If they've already have Office, it's trusted. And at times people say nobody gets fired for buying Microsoft, right?
We're partnering
And
with them.
yeah, and AWS is great too. There's some good advantages, but they came out of a kind of a B2C kind of space in my mind. And Microsoft is always been more of the B2B,
Yeah.
and we again, just started testing different technologies. And frankly, we're a bit agnostic. I mean, we could pick up and move and go
Yeah.
elsewhere
Right.
if we want to, which is always what we wanted to. That was one of our system requirements from day one, because we knew this would be changing, and we've incorporated other types of aspects of AI into our products over the years, and we'll continue to do that. So, and Microsoft's been great to us. I mean,
Yeah.
they put us into their startup program. We had a lot of the Azure credits and got a lot of support. And so it's really been a good experience.
How much of the channel have you unlocked there? Have you gotten to co-sell? Are you transactable in the marketplace? Are you on the app source? All that stuff.
Yeah, that's a bit of the harder piece of the Microsoft relationship. They want you to use their products and use them well, which we do. And we are in the Azure marketplace. We are in the Microsoft Teams marketplace. We're not in a position right now where you can, use Azure credits, for example, and pay for MeBeBot. It is still a sale that has to happen through MeBeBot, but we have that I call it that marketing component to our
Yeah.
relationship. And the co-selling, again, it's also a little bit tricky, getting aligned to the right types of teams at Microsoft that are seeing the types of ways that we frankly complement a lot of the types of solutions they have today, like Viva and even Copilot, and exploring other ways that we can tie into the ecosystem in a way that makes it best for that purposes of partnerships. And of course, every company like a Microsoft, they have an external sales team and partner people. And every year you have to ask, what's making those people tick? What do they get comped on? And that's been shifting, with inside these bigger organizations. At time, it was all about, consumption of the Azure services. And now there's a shift a bit to the cognitive services and other aspects. And it may even be, kind of different drivers that are important, and aligning ourselves to what's important to those people in those partner programs is something we're working toward.
So maybe for other founders who might be listening to this, what advice would you give them on partnering with Microsoft and kind of some lessons learned along the way so far there?
Yeah, I think it's developing as many relationships within Microsoft as you can, and not always just thinking the people that are part of the partner program are where you have to stay. I mean, finding people in Microsoft that are doing interesting things in the space that you're in, they often get super excited and become sometimes your biggest
Mm.
champions. And so, I mean, it is tough in a company of Microsoft with as many
Yeah.
employees as they have, but usually there are people with a bit of niche focuses. And sometimes people can guide you that are inside the organization and share, oh, I know a team that's doing this, and I know one person at that team, but you might have to just keep following the thread until you get to the right people.
So for potential customers out there, what should they know about your company and your solution?
Yeah, well, we're a great solution for companies that are exploring how do we use AI to create operational efficiencies to help improve employee productivity, communications, engagement. If they're looking for a way to get started in AI in a way that they can, have a successful project and get it launched quickly and see immediate time to value, that's us. And I know there's a lot of, thoughts with inside companies as where do we begin?
Mm.
Everybody knows they want to start down an AI journey, and it typically takes every department to say, all right, what are some low hanging fruit problems that we have that are administratively heavy or just lend itself well to automation? And frankly, what we do, meaning automating answers to employee questions, sending out push communications and notifications or nudges, gathering feedback through pulse surveys and sharing that data. I mean, we're part of that story of this whole employee experience that companies are looking to see how they can do, frankly, more with less right now.
Yeah.
Times are tough. Companies are lean, and everyone wants to have touch points with their employees, but they don't have the resources. And so we can do that with you and get a project launched in a matter of weeks. And you can see that success quickly and iterate on it, and get a win under your belt, because
Yeah.
everybody needs to get some quick wins.
Yeah. So what kind of ROI do your customers typically see? Like kind of what's that sales pitch look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started with, kind of the basics is like how much time do we save organizations, both the employees and the business users that were otherwise doing this work. So that's the frankly the easiest calculation. It's, hey, for every time we're answering a manual question, whether it comes in from a help desk, ticketing queue, an inbox, or a direct Slack or Teams message, that's a disruption in my day. That's time I had to take to craft a message. And then the person and an employee inside, what time did they spend before they even got to that individual internally to do that? So that's one of the core basis of it. But we build upon there. We build upon it to say, all right, when you can actually see data to understand what employees are asking about from which geographic area, what types of questions, you're learning more about your people. You're
Yeah.
learning more about how to support employees, how to drive more communications in areas that need more clarification, especially with global and distributed teams where people don't see each other as much. And so helping them see the correlation between, in the moment communications that can be very dynamic, to the power of how it helps with employee sentiment, which we can also capture through our pulse surveys, is really kind of bringing it all together so that they can tell a story back to their executive team of, hey, not only does MeBeBot save us time on employee support, but we're getting higher engagement with employees. This lends itself well to, reinforcements of company goals and visions, and
Yeah.
frankly, their overall retention at a company.
Yeah. I love that. So, funny story back in grad school, I had this exact idea and I was working on it in an innovation class, but I knew because I was a product manager at the time, I knew the technology wasn't there. This is like probably 2015. And so it's really amazing to see someone else actually deliver on this idea. Because back when I was a product manager, I would get pinged on I think it was HipChat back then. It wasn't Slack yet, and I would just get these constant barrage of questions from every department, right? So kind of similar to
Yeah.
HR, how you guys started in HR, but for a PM, it's like, oh, what is the blah de blah on that thing, and it would be relentless questions all day. I was like, wouldn't it be great if we had software that could just answer the questions? Because the answers
Exactly.
are sitting out there in documentation and product PRDs or and so it sounds like you guys started with HR, but you're kind of expanding into the other functional areas of the company. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we started with, frankly, do it with what you know. And so I knew the types of questions employees ask because I used to have that line outside my door, when I was in HR, people waiting to ask me questions or, getting emails, all different times of day and weekends, phone calls, etc. And so, it just made natural sense that, every department has the same pain point, like you're mentioning. And what's really always been considered the employee services groups have traditionally been, the IT teams, the payroll, the facilities, the HR. They've all been part of, what they're called, what you call infrastructure and
Yeah.
in support of operations of people. And so everybody had the same best interest in mind, which is we want to help employees get that information faster, but we also, frankly, would like to free up our time to do other things. And it was really natural with IT. They already had a lot of IT people have help desks, and they actually knew the kinds of questions that are the quick turnaround to your 0 to 1. And so implementing that within our solution was pretty easy. Facilities was pretty tricky over the last couple of years because we
Mm,
started right before the pandemic, and we had all sorts of content about the in-office experience. And frankly, we released after the pandemic began a whole COVID pack of content. We called it our COVID questions, and they were around things like return to workplace guidelines.
mm,
Do I have to wear a mask? Are vaccines required? And you never thought you'd have to be in a day where you'd have to create content around that. But we had to shift the whole focus of what facilities was all about. And it was more about supporting, this either hybrid remote work and even return to work kind of content. So, and then again, the finance and accounting and payroll teams, they're always asked questions about
yeah.
procurement processes. And so, everyone wants a little support and to get a little assistant like MeBeBot that helps them and their employees is a lot of fun.
Yeah. So what's the implementation look like? So a customer says, yes, I love it. I want to do this. Walk us through kind of the timeline and kind of some of the work that goes into spinning up a new customer.
Yeah, well, we decided from day one this had to be easy and it had to be pretty frictionless. So, again, our whole solution's cloud hosted, so we are fully SaaS. The process of getting a new customer live, frankly, we call it a configuration, not even an implementation, because on day one, every customer has a tenant of our instance of our product, and we can literally deploy their tenant in about 5 minutes so that the business users have access to our AI platform called Dex, and then the install into which channel they choose, whether it be Slack or Teams or web chat, is a quick, easy install of about 5 minutes. And really, at that point in time, it's about how to take content, whether it's the content you already have, and bring it into MeBeBot, or we came again to market before the generative AI was in existence, and we built a default library of 350 questions and default answers that companies can leverage from day one if they don't have their own content. So they really become just content editors, and getting people who are subject matter experts around their areas means that the process can be as fast as a week or two and can be 3 to 4. It could be probably about 2 to 4 months, depending on the globalization, the size. Maybe a company of about 10,000 employees may take 2 to 4 months because they have more content they're working with. With that many countries they do business in,
Right.
but it's really on their timeline based on how quickly they can get the content into the place that they want it to be to go live. With Gen AI, we can take documents that they already have and ingest them, so that speeds up the process. And it's like your information, your company handbook, your benefit summary guide. We take it in, we ingest it, and here's our suggested answers to these questions. Just verify and approve it, and we're ready to
Right.
go. And so that's just how easy it is to get the solution live, and that's what we really wanted, is something that any business user from any skill level can feel like, hey, I'm learning AI, and I can get comfortable about how to populate a solution. And they're even part of the loop of keeping the accuracy of answers solid. We pride ourselves in 93% accuracy of answers to every question because we do both human supervised training. We lean on our customers at time to help update answers to content if we feel like they're out of date and people are saying that answer wasn't helpful. So those customers are learning about how AI works and how you iterate on it to maintain and keep it strong. So it's trusted. It's trusted by employees.
Yeah, I love that. And so you actually deploy on the customer tenant.
We know it's a web-based browser that is a tenant. Yeah,
It's a multi-tenant
it's a
SaaS.
tenant of our multi-tenant SaaS product. Yeah,
so how do you alleviate the concerns of like, hey, you're using my company data to train your central model that helps other companies? How do you answer that?
Well,
like objection or whatever?
That's a great, yeah, for sure. I mean, we disclose what we do, which is we ingest the questions the employees are asking. Today, when MeBeBot interfaces with companies, we call it in our out-of-the-box solution. Employees are anonymous. We know that this employee has been authenticated in their Slack or Teams instance. When they come in to ask a question to MeBeBot, they identify their country they're in, and then we take in the question. We use it to process and get an answer to serve up the answer that's in their instance or their tenant. And then we frankly purge out that question. We show aggregated data back to our customers so they can see the types of questions people ask, but they don't get to see who asked that question on which day by which geolocation. It's not down to that personalization level. And again, they buy into it because they know that in order for data models and solutions like this to be as accurate, it requires information in, right? And we're not shoving fake data in or just anticipated data. It's real-time information, and every other employee at any company asking a question is bettering the solution for the whole. So we call it like a crowdsourced approach to training, and that actually gets people excited. Most people aren't asking anything sensitive. It's just, how do I get a copy of my paycheck stub? And, what's the process to enroll in the 401k? And so they're the same types of questions from company to company,
right.
But what makes each company unique is the answer that they serve that's only in their tenant of the product.
Yeah, I love that. Well, why don't we switch to a rapid fire round?
All right, let's do it. Yeah.
One word. What's one word to describe your entrepreneurial journey?
Oh boy, resilience. I think that's one that everybody would say is a popular one when you start a company before the pandemic and then you go into this whole economic wave that we're in right now. Yeah, you got to stay strong.
Yeah, it's just keep going, right? Just like, what's the
Keep
next
going.
step?
It's another little obstacle in the road, and how do you move around or through or with it, right?
Yeah. What's your favorite productivity tool?
Yeah, I like this one because I'm a fan of this company and I like to promote their product, but I got introduced to Beautiful.ai years ago, and it's a solution that helps you create really nice presentations, and you can export them as a PDF or a PowerPoint. Recently, they've embedded generative AI into the solution, so you can give them a whole outline of what you want slides to look like, and they create a slide deck. I use it all the time. I mean, it's how I created the pitch deck and our sales decks and all sorts of other internal things. And I look much more like a designer than I am. So
I love that. I'll need to check them out. Most influential book in your career?
In the career, there's ones for my business life and career. I think the book Good to Great was always very influential to me, as well as the book Blink. I like that book too by Malcolm Gladwell. Spending time in the people business, the Good to Great, Jim Collins, get the right people on the bus, still a mantra I use today. I'm a huge, huge believer of that. It's all what makes things roll. And if you don't have the right people on the bus,
Good to Great. I haven't read that since like 2002. Yeah. It's probably the last time I read it.
Yeah, I think it came out
like late 90s,
around that
maybe.
time.
Yeah. I was an undergrad business. Yeah.
And then I read Blink years ago, but it's still one of those books I remember because it's, that whole concept of thin slicing and how do you get to feel out people. And you use it. I use it a lot in sales. I use it a lot in investor conversations. You're trying to get a feel for people. So I find those books, those are ones that frankly drive me more than, there's a lot of different sales books on methodologies and this and that, but those are the two most memorable.
Love that. What was your first job?
Oh, first job. I was a newspaper carrier back in the day where people rode their bikes around and delivered newspapers. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to make money when I was 10 years old, and I wasn't old enough to babysit yet. So, but I was allowed to deliver newspapers, and I loved it. I bought my first stereo, and I bought a new bike, and a bunch of fun things through that paper route that I had.
Yeah, I love that. I think my very first job was for compensation. It was magazine sales door to door. And I think I was in 6th grade. And so I'd have this catalog of stuff, this before the internet, right? This like early 90s, 91 maybe. And I'd go knock on somebody's door and be like, hey, would you like to explore this catalog? And I was, 11, 12 years old, a really tough job.
Oh, yeah. It was a tough job, but like people can't just slam a door in the face of a little 12-year-old, And now kids, I mean, I did the whole Girl Scout cookies thing when I was a Girl Scout, and, we did go door to door, but now they don't do that anymore. They set up in front of the Target or the different retail stores.
Do you remember on your delivery route, the 1 or 2 customers that would never answer when you came to collect?
Oh, gosh.
No matter what,
I remember.
It'd be like month after month after month.
Yeah.
You're like,
and they
hey,
made
you're
you
like
go
4
around
months in
and
arrears
ask
here.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had one that wanted to be paying me every week. I was like, really? You want me to come to your door for the $2.50 probably at the time that you would write on a check, And that was crazy. I forgot about that. Thanks. That was one of those things you put in the back, and you're like, hey, I was a paper carrier in Wisconsin too, and my mom and dad on cold, snowy days, they'd have to drive me around on my paper route because what are you going to do, right? You can't ride your bike.
Ride my bike.
Yeah.
I remember one
so
guy.
I do thank them.
I was like, hey, we take checks. I barely knew what a check was. He goes, yeah, I could write you a check, but it'd bounce out your hands and down the street. And now I'm like, oh, that's hilarious. But when I was 11, 12 years old, I had no idea what that meant.
You're like, what is he doing?
What kind of is it made of rubber? Yeah.
Right.
What's one tech trend you're most excited about?
Oh yeah, and this is a toughie because there's a lot of them, and I mean, if I don't say something, I mean, of course, everything around AI is super exciting, and I have to say that the things that get me most excited, and I'm part of a bunch of different groups from women entrepreneurs in AI to, the Austin community, et cetera. But I love people who are in the health tech space. I mean, and they're doing some very cool things with wearable technologies, leveraging AI to predict people before they have seizures and before they fall from Parkinson's and all the different types of health tech is just going to really shape our world and help so many people out. So I'm excited that there's more support for that community because I think they've had a hard go of it. And I think the cost and barriers of entry are coming down for wearable technologies where they can get them manufactured and made in a more affordable way to do other cool things with them. So.
Yeah, I wish I had another lifetime to live and I would do biotech. I think it's so interesting.
I think so too.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I say too, Brian. I'm like, because that's how do you not feel good waking up every day when you're helping
curing
someone's life, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Like my stepmom's a diabetic, and she has the little device that she puts into her arm, and it syncs up with her Bluetooth, and it's measuring her insulin, and she's not poking herself 5 times a day anymore. So how brilliant is that?
Just changing lives.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
But alas, we're in B2B SaaS. So
yeah, there you go. But hey, I always say we're making work more meaningful for people because there's a lot of work that people have trudged and drudged away at for so many years. And if we can
Yeah.
remove things that are not rewarding and fulfilling to them and allow them to do more strategic things that get them excited to come to work every day, that's a win.
Mhm.
And help support employees so they feel more connected to the companies they work in, which is really hard to do these days. And there's so much burnout and
Yeah.
there's so many struggles, right, with inside organizations.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Yeah, that's a tough one because I don't think I'm either, but if I want to have my thinking cap on, definitely the morning. But like if you ask me to go out on a run, I'd rather do it later in the day,
Yeah,
than
that's
in the
interesting.
morning. So,
Yeah.
my mind wakes up earlier, but my body kind of gets into the groove later in the day.
Yeah.
So,
I do my exercise in the middle of the day as sort of like after my lunch. I find
yeah,
that I work out and then I eat lunch and then I go for a little run or a little walk. And that's sort of
yeah.
my, yeah. So maybe you're an afternoon person.
Yeah, even later than that even. I mean, yeah, I'm an afternoon person. Yeah. So,
What's the best piece of leadership advice you've ever received?
yeah, this is a good one too. I think it's always, I've been a strong person with instinct and learning to listen to my gut instinct and not steering away. I've had several, leaders who I've reported to or supported over the time that's like, I'll be like, well, I did have that instinct. And they're like, you need to lean into that more,
Mm,
So I, I, I do. Over the years, you can start to, you know, block out some of the noise. And sometimes you just have to go with the gut, right? And use your
yeah,
instincts.
love that. If you weren't in tech, what would you be doing?
Traveling. So I think one of the loves of my life and passions is exploring other cultures and sites. And I did spend some time as a little career break where I was a cycling tour guide and loving to go into different places and exploring cultures. And if that's a
Yeah.
profession, I think I know different ways that it could be now, but it was always kind of, not as open minded. I mean, I love the whole concept of around digital nomading and how do you
Mm,
support people who want to live that lifestyle of, not having to give up career and work to be able to have those travel experiences. I mean, I always say I'm a Gen Zer, or yeah, I'm a Gen Z, or no, I'm Gen X, but I really feel like a millennial. I always wanted to do the things that millennials really want to do now. Like a lot of them, it's not all about career aspirations. They want to see how they can
mm,
combine things. And I think there might be some pretty interesting business angles to that on the entrepreneurial side,
right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we love to travel as well. Probably one of our favorite things to do is do a food walking tour in a foreign city.
Mm,
You know,
absolutely. Absolutely.
those are so
Well,
fun.
if you go to a couple cities, I know some folks, that I could introduce you to. So that
Okay,
do
yeah.
just that. Yeah. Mexico
Um,
City,
oh, I've
Thailand.
never been to
Yeah.
Mexico City. I need to go.
Yeah.
I have some
Yeah.
founders down there. A couple portfolio companies. It's becoming kind of the tech hub of Mexico. So
Yeah,
I'll
for
probably
sure.
manufacture a reason to go down there at some point. I've heard really good things.
And there's great little food halls. And I mean, I love street food, and that's one of my favorite
Mm,
things to do. I'll push it to the limits and be like, okay, if I get sick, it's all right. We had a lived experience from it, right?
yeah. What's your favorite hobby outside of work?
I do still love to ride my bike. I love to go out cycling. I own 3 bikes, so kind of into mountain biking, road biking, just get around town biking. I also love to, my best stress releaser is just to go out on a run or
Yeah.
jog, and I like yoga. Yoga is really,
Mm,
it gets you that inward moments, and the stretching is you have to have that if you're going to do the running and the biking. You got to have the
yeah.
counterbalance and do the good stretching. Otherwise,
I
you'll
never
end
regret
up
doing
with some
yoga.
issues.
I don't do it enough, and every time I do it, I'm like, I love this, but yet I don't
And
do it
like,
enough.
yeah. And that's just it, is like, to me, you don't have to go to a formal class. It's just like, I just, do a few stretches that that I know will make me feel a little bit better. So
Have you gotten an e-bike?
yes, I have an e-bike. Here in Austin, it's interesting. They actually are giving, like if you buy an e-bike, it's a city program. You can get a $250, like kind of like credit,
Oh,
tax credit or mail-in credit. So the city is really promoting
huh.
e-bikes. I have an e-bike again, you know, around a lot of different people in the biking community. A friend of mine had this e-bike he bought it's called a Gazelle, and it's a brand from the Netherlands. And in the Netherlands, everybody bikes, right? So it's an older school, I call it e-bike, where the battery is on the right behind the back tire.
Hmm.
And frankly, for stability purposes, is not great. Like the new designs on e-bikes are, you want the battery to be on the what they call the
Oh, you
down
want it
tube.
to be in the center
So
of gravity.
to
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
center of gravity. But when they first started developing a lot of e-bikes, so they big batteries sitting on the back, kind of
Oh,
like,
wow.
again, and it's not great for balance, but I can manage on it. It can go pretty fast, and that battery, even though it's big, you can bike for a couple 100 miles before
Oh,
it
wow.
charge. So
Wow.
yeah, the charging, capacity of an e-bike is important if you are a commuter, because you need to make sure that it doesn't run out on you, halfway through your commute home. And some really don't. Some of the batteries even regenerate, as
Oh,
you're
yeah.
biking and you put it in an eco mode, it helps regenerate the battery a bit.
It's like
So
power assist,
boy,
right? You
they're
still have to pedal a
power
bit.
assist.
Yeah.
You still are pedaling, but it's a power assist. Just that little hill you've got is like zoop, just bump up that hill real quick.
That's nice.
So yeah, yeah. So I'm a fan, and I think, people will probably start, I really see them taking off. The price has to come down a little bit
Yeah.
more. They're a little on the spendy side, but I'd love to see them become really reasonable, so more people get energized about biking and getting out of their cars, especially living in Texas. That's like something that's not quite as popular,
Mm,
but work on it.
mm. What's next for MeBeBot?
Oh yeah, this year is going to be exciting. I mean, we're still on that path to, doing more and more with the aspects of both types of AI that we leverage, generative AI with the natural language processing. We're seeing a lot of interest in and an opportunity to really tackle some of the underserved areas of the world, which is frontline workers.
Mm,
These are the hardworking people that are hard to find, and companies have a tough time bringing in this talent into manufacturing today. We know the healthcare industry is suffering. They can't find people and bring them on board. And how can we provide a new user interface outside of Teams and Slack? I mean, those are tools designed for knowledge workers, right? What do the frontline workers always have? Their phone, right? So
right.
SMS messaging interface. We're exploring that, and developing a bit of a prototype, socializing it. We've got a lot of interest in that,
Mm,
and frankly, it's our same core solution. It's just making it more open and available for people to text a question.
yeah.
How do I get a copy of my paycheck stub? I mean, everybody needs this information more dynamically to feel supported by their employer.
Right. Well, this has been a
So
fantastic
that's,
conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed it.
yeah, thank you, Brian. You're a great host, and I'm really excited that Team Ignite's on board. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you so much.
wonderful. Yeah, thanks so much.